This is Brighter Shores, the newest MMORPG by Andrew Gower, most famous for creating RuneScape. Perhaps you're one of the over 300 million people who have heard of it. But can Andrew Gower recreate the magic behind one of history's greatest MMOs? Let's find out. Right from the opening screen, there's no mistaking it. This is Andrew Gower's love child. In fact, opening the settings reveals credits to brothers Ian and Paul Gower, both early members on the RuneScape team Jagex. Click play and enter a character selection screen, allowing you to have 3 separate characters, with a curious Purchase Premium Pass up in the top left, which is a good time to say, the game is free to play on Steam. Load in and we are met with a basic character creator. Shirts, legs, face, colors, it's all there. And although there's no fantasy races here, this randomly generated girl certainly looks a little ghoulish. I settle on this handsome little fella and dub him Tazzy, and we get our first pitch for the Premium Pass, the ability to remove suffix tags from your name. But since I am the first of the Tazzies, I'll be okay. We are given control of our character, and surprise surprise, it's just like RuneScape. That is to say, overhead camera, where you click to move, and click to interact with the world around you. Now to story. We are a newly enlisted guard of the town of Hopeport, reporting to our higher-ups for training. Brighter Shores shamelessly lifts RuneScape's branching dialogue options that exist solely to inject the Gower's native British banter into the game. Address your senior officers as ma'am or sir. You'll be given a hard time in training if you— Okay, whatever you say, Jow. We are then told to get to training, and off we go. First being introduced to the quest pad, which lists all of the quests in the area, even those you haven't started yet. After getting my legs working, we report to the corporal, continuing the bratty act of annoying every character we meet. He instructs us to gear up and talk to the master of guard magic. He is in charge of magic suppression in the town, and after whitelisting us for magic, he tells us to go learn under Malzak. Malzak sends us to go touch the teleport stone, which gives us our first spell, Teleport to Hopeport. A convenient way to get around, as well as ensure we don't get ourselves stuck somewhere unsavory. And here comes more of the fun dialogue options. If we ask him to prove his magical prowess, he impresses by producing a silver coin from behind our ears. Finally, he teaches us the Sense spell, which can ping all interactable objects on screen. Keep it in mind, it will be very useful. We go to the quartermaster to gear up and get introduced to our 21 inventory spaces, our equipment screen, and our weapons screen. We can have 3 weapons and 2 potions, but more importantly, once combat starts, we have to, quite literally, lock in, since we can only swap between these 3 weapons while fighting. But before we can get our bearing, the town alarm sounds and we are called to arms. Now personally, I'm a huge fan of these in-engine cinematics, since they help keep the game cohesive and immersive. But I'm not sure if whatever this is lore accurate. We gather up our fellow new recruits and find one of our team's members' bows, a quest item, which is held in its specific quest interface, another great quality of life choice. With our team gathered, we spring into action, so behold, combat. Combat in Brighter Shores is click and wait. You can switch weapons, move around, but otherwise it's numbers versus numbers. Killing the goblin gives us experience towards our first profession, Guard, which encompasses all of our combat capabilities. After saving this merchant and helping him move his stuff out of danger, we are rewarded with a large lump sum of coins, as well as a scolding from our superiors. More importantly, Captain DeGreen has been injured, and we are tasked with helping the potion maker concoct a healing potion. So we are sent southwest down to the beach to find the potion ingredients, not before fighting a few more goblins on the way. Interestingly, even though 2 goblins jump us, combat is always done in single combat, so the other goblin just meanders about while waiting for his pummeling. We make it down to the beach, and now for another important game mechanic. When you encounter a new map tile, the interactable resources are always given as question marks, but you can discover them, which places that resource on the map and in the profession screens, so no need to constantly wiki scavenge on your second monitor. Here we can find the kelp that we were looking for, and the game's introduction to the gathering skills, in this case, foraging. In Brighter Shores, fishing and foraging are your primary gathering skills, taking place at resource nodes. Sometimes you need special equipment, but luckily they don't eat away at your precious inventory space. So we click the kelp, and just like that, we are a novice forager. Backtrack through the town, and now a tutorial for the processing or artisan skills. In this case, alchemist. And just like most of the game, the processing professions are click and wait. To its credit, each item usually requires not only different ingredients, but also a slightly different process, hence the many available tables in the room. But in the end, it all boils down to click and wait. After saving the captain and reporting back, we are then set free with the simple fourth wall breaking task of training my total level to 60. Also, we get an immunity spell, which lets us run from combat. And so begins the great grind. But more importantly, when we leave this screen, we are met with the sight of other, real human beings, the beginning of the MMO. We start by training our guard profession, sparring against fellow recruits. Combat is very simple. It takes about 25 seconds for me to kill my first target, and I don't have any other inputs during that time. Furthermore, with no blacksmith type skills in the game, most of the gear upgrades come from the enemies themselves. Each time I level, I get a pop-up of the new things I can do, but since I don't know where these enemies are, I start to go explore. I find the level 2 enemies and kill a few of them, but take note of this name, Glint Eye Deathcrow. Eventually, I come across one of the quests in the area, the Obelisk. Now, RuneScape quests are why I fell in love with RuneScape. They're unique in the MMO genre since they actually feel like mini adventures. Even the lowly cook's assistant completely clears WoW's Kill 6 Murloc quests. So I go into the quest with high hopes. Commander Hackett is dealing with a weapon shipment issue, and when we try and help him, a goblin thief makes off with our weapons. But a quick inspection of guard level 10, and I decide I am far too underleveled for this, so get to grinding. I'll be honest, just like RuneScape, Brighter Shores is a very grindy game. A majority of my few hours on the game are clicking specific boxes for XP, so keep that in mind if you're gonna give it a go. Now as I grind up the linear chain of guard enemies, let's talk about gear. Gear has guard levels, 6 types of damage and resistance, as well as a rarity system. The rarity system is perhaps the most confusing. A little bit of spoilers, but a few hours in, I find a shield 14 levels higher than my old one, but with a lower rarity, it is hopelessly outclassed. I go through my Rocky montage battering thieves, goblins, and magical goblins, until I reach guard level 12. And now with 2 weapons at my disposal, I make light work of the goblin thief. Returning to the commander, he tells us of the obelisk, which can tune our weapons to empower them within Hopeport. So we locate the obelisk in the city, which is unfortunately in disrepair. We are told one piece likely fell and floated downstream, so we get to searching. Now the true RuneScape fans in the audience know there are no quest markers on these adventures, so you better be reading along or you're gonna have to pop open a guide. So we follow the flow of the stream, passing through 2 separate bridges, but soon I find myself in the ocean with no piece in hand. So I head back upstream, this time remembering my sense skill. Unfortunately for me, I'm a dingus. I waste no less than 10 minutes meandering around until I approach from the opposite side, letting me catch a glimpse of the prize. You can even see me try to use the sense skill to cope with my earlier blindness. Unfortunately, when we try to install the piece, it doesn't fit, because, I kid you not, it's missing this little plume of magic. Luckily, we can call tech support by summoning a Cryo Knight, as long as we can figure out this tablet puzzle. The puzzle itself is simple but satisfying, with a compass on the tablet and a compass in my game window, and a 3-minute excursion to get some pieces. I line them up and match the symbols, and behold. Then we get sent to fetch the Master Mage, but now behold! We fix the obelisk and then gain access to attuned weapons. Also, my console blows up with a bunch of errors, not sure what that's about. Unfortunately, with the completion of the quest, we are left to grind away. We need to get to 60 total level to continue the main story, and the other side quests have much higher requirements. And since grinding doesn't make for compelling storytelling, let's just go over the highlights. At guard 15, we gain access to bows, which let us chip away at enemies from range, before we get into the normal slugfest. I test my hand at the other skills. Cooking is much like alchemy, with tons of recipes and prep stations to make each dish, but on a practical level, you'll be filling your inventory with one recipe and AFKing through it as much as you can. Is what I thought I'd say, because at chef level 9, you unlock bounties, which incentivize you to cook specific dishes and bring them to patrons throughout the town. A neat little wrinkle if you want a more active playstyle. Fishing, on the other hand, is just foraging with slimy sea creatures. But with all 5 professions mentioned, I have to say they do a good job interconnecting each profession together. Foraging, for example, lets you gather not only potion ingredients, but foodstuffs like potatoes for cooking. And alchemy provides the potions, so you can actually do something other than patiently waiting during combat. But this is where things get weird. While training my fishing, I go through flounders, then eels, then pufferfish, but then I unlock the olive flounders, and all the flounders on the very same beach get color swapped. Then I unlock the gray eels, same business. In fact, pulling up my cooking recipe, different colored eels are used 8 separate times on 8 different recipes. It isn't the end of the world, but reusing the same model and same location rubs me the wrong way. And unfortunately, this design infects other phases of the game, like combat, where the glint-eyed deathcrow mentioned earlier evolves into beady-eyed deathcrows. And worst of all, this other player is out here fighting a level 372 malevolent deathcrow. That said, the most disappointing part of the game for me is that the entirety of Hopeport only has 3 side quests. Right from the get-go in RuneScape, you had basic quests like Sheep Shearer, Cook's Assistant, Rune Mysteries. Not all of those were available at release, but comparatively, these side quests take a lot of grinding. I mean, just to get the 60 total level required for the main quest takes me nearly 4 hours. But you're telling me the Brannoff Inheritance quest requires 61 chef? And don't worry, this will only become more confusing in the next hour. I get the quest Level Up, which features us leaving the walls of Hopeport with the other new recruits. So we wander to the walls and enter the second area of the game, Hope Forest. Like usual, we survey the area, taking note of this plant that requires 0 foraging? But when I go to collect it, that looks like a new profession. In fact, we get 4 new professions. But the strange thing about them is, these aren't really new professions. But we'll get to that. The main quest has us play hide and seek in the forest as part of our training. So we follow the ground tracks through these area screens, discovering all types of new resources. But after splitting with our fellow seeker, we get sidetracked, as I discover a dryad getting accosted by a level 10 mutant stag. But with my guard powers left behind in Hopeport, and my attuned weapons losing their powers away from the obelisk, I lose in the tight race and end up dying. Now during my run back, I reflect. I'm not sure how I feel about each area having their own levels. In a way, it feels like the progress I made is entirely meaningless. I might be a master of picking berries in the town, but these forest berries are an entirely different beast. And I will give them some credit for their unique approach. In a gaming market dominated by bigger and bigger numbers, it, at the very least, makes a bit more sense than going from slaying an undead dragon to struggling against random baby chicks. Watch that video, by the way. Pulling up the wiki reinforces this same design philosophy, as each new area adds new professions, and while some are unique in scope, I can't take Watch Person seriously after hours of rigorous training as a guard. And as to not end my first impressions on a sour note, I did see this little update blog which directly addresses the profession system, criticisms about it, and why the devs chose it, as well as what they're gonna do to change it. And in a world of conflicting interests and design philosophies, good dev communication is a certifiably commendable action. With all that said, after a day of playing away, I will award Brighter Shores a maybe wait a bit for them to flesh out the game and finalize their systems out of 10. And hey, if you made it to the end, you gotta leave a like, you gotta subscribe. See ya!